Hello, welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I got you another full game series review. Today's series is the Dead Space Trilogy, in preparation for that remake. These are reviews of all 3 games back to back, so grab your plasma cutter and get ready to slice up some necromorphs. Hello friends, and welcome to 3 Minute Game Pass. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this Game Pass game is worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is the original Dead Space. In space, everybody can hear you scream. Dismemberment, spacewalking, and necromorphs await in the first game in the much-loved horror franchise. But is it worth the play today? Let's find out. Dead Space is a cross-platform release for Xbox and PC. On the Xbox version, it is a 360 game, so Series S and Series X will upgrade it with HDR and a resolution boost. It is additionally only available from EA Play, so you either have to have Game Pass Ultimate or Game Pass PC, and the game lasts about 11 hours. So what exactly is Dead Space? Well, Dead Space follows Isaac Clarke, a silent protagonist space engineer, on a rescue/repair mission trying to figure out what happened to the ship, the USS Ishimura, as well as find Isaac's girlfriend who was stationed there. Well, what happened, spoilers not really, was the crew all got murdered and mutated into horrible, fleshy, Cronenbergian murder zombies who want to rip Isaac's face off. So good luck with that, buddy. The general gameplay is you have an assortment of weapons, which are more like tools you find around the ship, that you use to combat the horrors of the Ishimura. The gimmick of the game, however, is that you have to cut the limbs off of enemies for maximum damage, as headshots and body shots are not very effective and usually just make the enemies angrier. This means enemies end up requiring more precise targeting to effectively dispatch, which in the height of a horrifying moment just ramps up the tension. As you explore through the ship, you'll uncover more and more of what is actually going on, encountering newer, scarier necromorphs and bosses, and eventually land on a nearby planet for a final showdown. All in all, it's an excellent third-person shooter with horror elements that has a heavy emphasis on precision shooting, immersion, and mastering your equipment. So what I like about Dead Space? Well, I think this game's combat is great. It has a ton of weapons, and every weapon is very unique and change how you play or approach foes, which I really thought was pretty cool and leads to a lot of replayability to try and play through the game with a different set of weapons. There is a ton of immersion in this game. Its other gimmick was there's no HUD. All the things you need to know are displayed in-world, which is really cool. And while it is a gimmick, it does lend itself to a more immersive experience. The environments and situational storytelling additionally add to that immersion, and I can't end this without talking about the phenomenal sound design that is just leagues above other games. It's so well done and just really nails that atmosphere. And lastly, this game's pacing is fantastic. It always makes you want to continue to the next thing. It's a very hard game to put down. When it comes to the bad, the spacewalk sections in the game are really clunky. You kind of have to jump from thing to thing, and they're not very fun. At times, the controls additionally can be a little clunky. It's based off of Resident Evil 4, which was infamously a bit tank-like to play. This one's not that bad, but it still is a little sour. And lastly, stasis is an ability you get, and it's completely broken, and it makes the game an absolute cakewalk if you know how to abuse it. So as you know, rate games on a 3-point scale, must play, maybe consider don't bother. Dead Space 1 is still absolutely a must play. It is a fantastic third-person shooter with horror elements, which still looks great to this day, which makes me wonder why EA thought it needed a remake, because honestly, on the updated Series X with HDR, it looks almost as good as an Xbox One game. It's a great example of a game where everything comes together exceptionally well. The sound, the art direction, the details, the combat, the environments, etc. If you've slept on Dead Space, you should absolutely give it a shot now that it's on Game Pass. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like the video, please give it a like. That actually helps small channels like me a ton. And then get out there and enjoy the hell out of Dead Space. Hello friends, welcome to another 3 Minute Game Pass. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this Game Pass game is worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Dead Space 2. Isaac Clarke is back, and now on a space colony, and he can talk. I'm sure everything will go completely fine for him with no necromorphs, hallucinations, or any such things to ruin his day. Oh wait, I guess that's exactly what happens. Dead Space 2 is another Xbox and PC cross-release, with the Xbox version being a 360 game, so Series S and Series X will upgrade them. Additionally, this is an EA Play only game, so you're going to need Game Pass PC or Ultimate to play it, and Dead Space 2 lasts about 9 hours. So what exactly is Dead Space 2? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is the sequel to Dead Space with one goal: bigger, badder, and more badass. This time, instead of taking place on one ship, it takes place on a space city colony that has been overrun by the necromorphs, and Isaac has to figure out exactly what is going on and how to stop it, which involves shooting a lot of necromorphs, not in the face, but in the arms and legs. Expect more of the same third-person shooting as the first game, with a strict emphasis on dismemberment, but with a ton more weapons, enemies, and a much more refined and smoother combat system. Isaac has a few upgrades from the first game, including a faster stomp, generally better aiming, and again, a bunch of new weapons, which he will need because there are even more new monsters that'll test your combat skills. The game moves forward at a relentless pace from set piece to set piece, with high action throughout. Everything in the game looks incredible, so many interesting and exciting new locales for Isaac to murder things and get murdered in. In terms of a sequel to Dead Space, I don't think you could ask for more. So what do I like about Dead Space 2? Well, without any hyperbole, I think this might be the best third-person single-player shooting campaign ever made. The shooting just feels so right, with such a massive variety of enemies that make the game very challenging, such fantastic set pieces. It's just really solid from beginning to end. Production values on this one in particular are through the roof. The visuals are phenomenal. The environments, there's so many different locations you go to, and they all look fantastic and are designed to be as spooky and interesting as possible. The sound design, the new upgrade tree is exciting. It's just a fantastic production values throughout. And lastly, like the first game, the pacing of this game is nearly perfect. It is so hard to put this game down. Everything leads from one exciting thing to another exciting thing. It's really a ride. When it comes to the bad, this game isn't really a horror game anymore, which might annoy some people. It's not really that scary. There are definitely horror elements in it, but you feel empowered, and it's much more an action game. Some of the enemies and new stuff do feel a little edgy for the sake of edgy, like the babies that explode and stuff like that. I'm really reaching for negatives here, if I'm being completely honest. And speaking of which, the last negative is, it now asks you to buy an online pass every time you boot up the game. Remember online passes? Wow, what a cool idea that was. Thanks, EA. I'm so glad it's in this game forever for me to see every time I try and play it. As you know, I rate games here on a 3-point scale. Must play, maybe consider, don't bother. Dead Space 2 is absolutely 100% a must play. Like I said, it might be the best single-player third-person shooter ever made. It's so good. The shooting is engaging and fun, with a right variety of weapons, encouraging replays to play with different kits, and the enemies requiring different strategies of shooting so that shooting itself never gets dull as you're trying to shoot different parts of the enemy off. The environments are phenomenal and have incredible art design and atmosphere. The set pieces are so exciting, and the game's pacing is wonderful. It can't really do better than this when it comes to third-person shooting. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to leave a like on this video, that would help me out a lot. But whether you do or do not, I hope you have a great day, and go out there and enjoy the hell out of Dead Space 2. Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of 3-Minute Game Pass. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this Game Pass game is worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Dead Space 3. Isaac is back for the last time in a co-op crafting, more open horror finale to the trilogy. Do the dramatic changes to the formula work, or is Dead Space 3 a dud? Let's find out. Dead Space 3 is an Xbox and PC cross-release. It is released as a 360 game, which means Series S and Series X will upgrade it with HDR and resolution. Also, it's worth noting this is an EA Play game, so you have to have Game Pass Ultimate or Game Pass PC to play it, and the game is about 12 to 13 hours long. So what is Dead Space 3? Well, it concludes Isaac's story with the Necromorphs and the Marker, as well as marks the end of the studio that made the franchise. In my script, I put a sad crying face at the end of that sentence. Unlike the previous games, this one focuses more on co-op and crafting. The entire game can be played in co-op, which is a fairly solid experience. Co-op also adds things like one of you seeing things while the other one doesn't, as well as some different story bits, which is neat. However, the game still plays fine single player, even if you lose the other side of the story entirely. The other big change is how the guns work. In the previous games, you could hold 4 guns that each had one alt firing mode, while in this one you can hold just 2 guns. However, they have a massive crafting and customization system to empower those guns. You want a line gun on bottom and a flamethrower on top? What about a shotgun on top and a shotgun on bottom? Why not lace your bullets with stasis so the entire game becomes a cakewalk? You now have tons of options when it comes to making your personal ultimate weapon. Because of this, ammo is now universal, and resource scavenging is a thing. You get a little bot that goes out and gets resources to make these new components, or you can pay real money for resources and loot boxes. Yes, loot boxes, even back in the day.
EA has always been terrible. However, you absolutely do not need to do this, and you should never ever do this, as the game gives you more than enough resources to beat the game and have the best gun you ever could possibly want. The final change is the missions. The game now has a slightly more open world aspect to it, with characters giving you side quests to accomplish in areas off the beaten path. This rewards you with more story bits and more resources. So all in all, it still plays very similar to the previous Dead Spaces in its shooting, but the structure around it has been fundamentally changed. So what I like about Dead Space 3? Well, the weapon customization is hella fun, and the gun combos you can make are silly and a blast. Yes, I actually did make a shotgun like I said in my commentary, and it was rad as hell. I also think the shooting is still very solid, even if the enemies are starting to feel a bit samey. Having the new tools does help a bit with that, and co-op is very fun, even if it completely kills the horror vibe. So if you have a like-minded friend, maybe play it together. When it comes to the bad, the de-emphasis on precision shooting really was the one big thing this game had. You don't have to aim for the limbs anymore because your new guns are so powerful, you just blow them away in the body parts. And it's like, that was the one thing you had that was really interesting, Dead Space. Why did you get rid of it? This game also has a lack of polish when compared to 1 and 2, with much less interesting environments and a lot more copy-pasted content throughout. And lastly, the story is a massive letdown. It really just sucks. Isaac is now in this lame love triangle, and the whole thing just doesn't work really well. And as a final kick in the face from EA to show how much they hate you, the real ending is gated behind DLC. So that's really cool. As you know, I rate games here on a must-play, maybe consider, don't bother. Dead Space 3 is a maybe consider. It is the black sheep of the series for a reason, but honestly isn't as bad as most people make it out to be. It's still a very fun third-person shooter with a really neat crafting system and some engaging combat, and it plays even better in co-op. However, it does have much worse production values and a poor story. But if you enjoyed the series and want to see it to its end, Dead Space 3 is still a fun and engaging ride. Just be prepared that it isn't at the same level as its predecessors. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you leave this video a like, I will be your best friend forever. But even if you don't, we can still be best friends. And get out there and enjoy Dead Space 3.